We're waiting for the green light to go on.
Welcome to the October 25th, 2022 meeting of the Edina Planning Commission. The city is committed to continuing to receive and hear your input on matters. We have been collecting public input through voicemail, our engagement website, bettertogetheredina.org. It's also important that you know all comments that have been submitted have been received and read prior to the start of this meeting. So you don't need to submit the same feedback in another way. All feedback is considered equally, regardless of the way in which it was submitted. Tonight we have two public hearings. Individuals who want to provide testimony remotely for the public hearings can call 786-496-5601 and enter conference pin 855-0148#. Press star 1 on your keypad when you would like to get into the queue to speak, and an operator will introduce you when it's your turn. Please state your full name and address before speaking. Everyone will be allowed up to 3 minutes to speak, and staff member Liz Olson will let anyone who calls in know if they have gone over those 3 minutes. Just remember, you do not need to call in or comment live tonight if you've already provided feedback, and please do not repeat any information already presented. Provide testimony if you have new comments or information to bring forward. And so with that, I will call our meeting to order, and we can do our roll call, please.
Commissioner Padilla.
Here.
Commissioner Miranda.
Here.
Commissioner Elkhire.
Here.
Commissioner Strauss.
Here.
Chair Agnew.
Here. Thank you. First up is our approval of our meeting agenda. If I could have a motion for that.
I'll move.
Second.
All those in favor of approving our meeting agenda tonight, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, our agenda has been approved. Next up is our approval of meeting minutes for both our regular meeting on September 28th as well as our regular meeting on October 12th. Any updates to make to those minutes? All right, can I get a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, our minutes from September 28th and October 12th have been approved. Next, we will go into our community comment. So we will hear from residents in person who would like to speak about something not on tonight's agenda or scheduled for a future public hearing. So similar to the public testimony, you may speak for up to 3 minutes. After giving your full name and address, the green light on your podium will turn on. When you have 30 seconds remaining, the yellow light will turn on, and when you are out of time, the red light will turn on. So with that, is anyone here to provide community comment tonight? All right, seeing none, we will continue on. Next up are our public hearings. So we will start with our site plan review and ordinance amendment for 4901 West 77th Street, being presented by Director Teague.
Located down in the Pentagon Park, Pentagon Village development, right on the south border of the city, guided in our comprehensive plan for office residential uses. About 4 years ago or so, this property was zoned for planned unit development, so there's a specific zoning ordinance that goes for this site, and it is for the development that's on the screen. So this is the overall development master plan. The site we're looking at this evening is located on the intersection of Computer and 77th. It's this site right here. It was planned for a 19,000 square foot office or retail building. The 2 retail buildings have been constructed. The parking ramp has been constructed. The residential housing has been constructed, and the hotel located in the middle will begin construction soon. The After this project is developed, the only remaining site would be the office development site on the far west end. Here's a two-dimensional view. Again, this is the site that we're looking at right here. The site has already been mass graded. It's basically just ready for the building to be placed on the site. So what the applicant is proposing here is a 15,000 square foot office and bank with an indoor drive-through. It's a rendering of the building. Essentially, this is from the inside of the development. You can see the drive-up entrance and the exit. Night version of the building. This is a look at the building on 77th Street. This would be the elevation from Computer. This is a look at the indoor drive-through. This would face the street. Building would be stone and metal panel. So what this request requires is just a site plan review and an ordinance amendment to allow a third wall sign for the signage that faces inside the development. So review of the site plan. Again, here is what's been approved in the master plan. So you can see the footprint of the building is generally the same. Entrance into the drive-through would be through here, and the exit on the northwest side. So you can see this is a look at the first floor with the drive-through. There would be 2 lanes in there, then the bank on the main level, and then the office on the second story. Full landscaping consistent with the overall master plan around the site. The building is code compliant. It complies with all the PUD standards for setback, building height. Parking is provided in front and within the parking ramp. Again, the square footage of the building is slightly less than what was approved in the master plan, so parking shouldn't be an issue. In regard to the signage, so you can see, maybe this graphic shows it best. So there would be a sign on this north-facing elevation. That would be this sign here. Along this elevation would be the one emblem. And then the interior-facing sign would be this First Bank and Trust sign located here. The way the code reads is you can have 2 wall signs if your building faces 2 street frontages, which it does here. We've been flexible with what 2 walls that you want to place your sign on. So there would be no wall signage on the Computer side, but there would be that extra wall sign interior facing. Staff believes this is reasonable. The signage it meets our size requirements. As you can see in the elevations here, fit the scale of the building. And just given the angles of the building, we believe that the additional sign is reasonable. We did receive 1 objection in Better Together that had concerns about the signage. They didn't feel the city should allow that additional sign. There were a couple other submittals of support for the project. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the site plan and the ordinance amendment that would allow the signage as shown on the graphics. With that, I can stand for questions.
Thank you so much, Director Teague. Questions do commissioners have? Please, Commissioner Alkire.
Thank you, Director T. Just for clarity, it's a permitted use. There's no variances with the exception of the sign. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, thanks.
Commissioner Strauss?
Director Teague, I'm just, the limit to 2 signs, it seems like not very practical considering this is like a four fronted building. It's sort of like that limitation to 2 just doesn't seem to apply to this kind of construction,
Yeah,
So-
I would agree. There's the interior roads on the south side. It's not a public street, so technically they can't have the 3rd sign. But I would agree with you. This is certainly a four-sided building.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Director Teague. Did the applicant have a presentation to make, or did we want to just stand for questions?
They do have a presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Jay Scott with Salomon Real Estate Group. I'm one of the developers for the master plan of Pentagon Village. Director Teague did a great job, I think, of kind of giving an overview. I was going to start with just a brief overview of Pentagon Village, just as sort of a reminder of what we have and kind of where we're going with that project. But rather than repeat a lot of what he said, I would tell you that we work very closely with the bank and the architects. They're going to go ahead and make this presentation tonight. And we're just really excited that they were so committed to finding and designing a building, if you will, that really conforms and really complements well kind of the vision of what Pentagon Village was, both architecturally and also just with respect to how the building lays out and connects to the rest of the project itself. As you know, in the project, we've done our best to really minimize surface parking. We've focused the parking in the back side of the site with the 423 stall four-story ramp. But, so that we could support intensity of development on the site, but again, minimizing surface parking. But they've also done a nice job with the connectivity with the trails and the sidewalks. We have a fairly comprehensive network of trails and sidewalks already in the project, but it was important to kind of complete those components with this design as well to make those connections fully complete, and they were able to do that with this design as well. So with that, I'll be here to answer any questions following the presentation that you might have on the project, but I would like to invite up Scott Laugen. He's an officer with the bank, so he can share a few comments with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Yes, good evening. I do represent First Bank and Trust tonight in the building project that we're proposing. Just to give a little bit of background to the commission, we're not exactly a household name in the Twin Cities compared to some of the nationals and the regional banks, but First Bank and Trust has been in the Twin Cities since December of 2017. By virtue of a merger with People's Bank of Commerce, the current location at 3316 West 66th Street, and we have been at that location since December of 2005. I was actually the president of People's Bank of Commerce when we moved from Bloomington to Edina in 2005, so I've been with the bank for the last 17 years. I think the big question sometimes is, why? Why are we proposing to move? Why are we proposing to build on this site? First off, we've had tremendous growth since 2017. The bank's total assets, now we have two locations, one in Edina and one in Roseville, but we've had tremendous growth in the last 5 years. We've grown from $145 million in total assets to almost $600 million, so significant growth. And we say a lot of that comes from the fact that where we're located. We've got a great place to be. We're looking for a more prominent location. And frankly, we've outgrown the location we're in today. Today, we're in 5,000 square feet. First Bank and Trust is a much larger organization than People's Bank of Commerce was. We're chartered out of Brookings, South Dakota. We're a $4 billion community bank, $4 billion community bank. If I said million, that was incorrect. $4 billion community bank, primarily on the eastern side of South Dakota. We have 22 locations in 17 different communities, and it is family-owned, 142 years by the Fishback family who founded the bank. Today, we're operating with the third and fourth generations of the Fishback family. It's family-owned and employee-owned and community-sponsored. The number one key pillar to our organization, the foundation, is helping the communities. And I think that has been the success of this organization. And so with that, I would say what's going to take place on this location is, with our opportunity to grow, we have our mortgage department. Our chief mortgage officer will office and house, covers the entire organization out of Edina. Our wealth management services, which we have not been able to add those services or private banking services because of our lack of space in our current location. So those two areas, along with our SBA department, our SBA director, recently hired a year ago, will also lead that SBA division for the entire organization from Edina. Now, I'm going to fall short of calling this a regional headquarters, which some people would like me to do. However, it is a flagship office for us. We're continuing to grow. Our vision is to continue to grow across the Twin City market, our footprint, bring our products and services and the way we deliver them to the Twin Cities market in the same way we've been doing in Edina and Roseville markets for the last 17 years, all the way back to People's Bank of Commerce. With that, we will have a training center. So in effect, it may be somewhat regional. So we'll have a training center that we can bring in up to 50 people into our Edina market. And as we looked across the area and across the Twin Cities, and specifically Edina to start with, and then we kind of had to broaden, as you well know, there aren't a lot of spots to build a new building in Edina. So as we continued to look through this area, we found that this was a prominent spot in the Pentagon Village would suit us very well. We think we bring value to the Pentagon Village, and we believe that our growth and continued bringing value into the community as well. And so with that, if there are any other questions regarding the bank or about the bank, happy to answer those after our designers come up and do their presentation. Kyle?
Thanks, Scott. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members of the Planning Commission. Thank you, Director Teague. My name is Kyle Peterson. I'm with HTG Architects. Let's see if I can advance this slide one bump. So with our design that we set after to pursue Scott and the vision of First Bank and Trust, we kind of tackled this project site with kind of three main objectives. First, maximizing the building footprint on this site to build the density that's required for their program. And for the development itself. We also looked at minimizing the impact on the existing infrastructure. As Jay mentioned, it's a pad-ready site. There's already parking. There's already utilities. We wanted to take advantage of as much of that as we could. And then thirdly, maintaining similarities with the existing approved design for this site and the surroundings beyond the site as well. So looking at a little more detailed view of this site, this shows two images. One of them is kind of a topography and grading plan illustrating some of the challenges we encountered in developing the interior layout and how that layout integrates with the surrounding site. We've got a pretty serious topography differential between our finished floor elevation and the sidewalk that kind of flanks the perimeter of the development. But we kind of used those to our advantage and worked our design into that. So a high water table also exists on the site, which dictated that we could not lower that floor to the sidewalk elevation. So moving forward into how that influenced our floor plan, you can see our main entry location to the northwest. And then about at a midpoint, there's also a staff entry. So you're looking at on the left-hand side, our main level floor, on the right-hand side, the upper level floor plan. These floor plans are kind of chasing the program that Scott laid out for us, including 30-plus staff offices and individual workspaces. As he mentioned, a regional staff training center and conference flex space, employee amenities, including a fitness center. There's bike parking also for employees and clients of the bank alike, shower facilities within the bank. So it's a bank, and then it's a lot more than a bank. A unique feature is, of course, as mentioned, kind of a reinvention of a traditional bank drive-up canopy. We have a fully enclosed drive-up within the building structure. That was intentional for kind of a client experience standpoint that the bank can offer, as well as to better integrate and kind of more seamlessly fit in with the surrounding site conditions and to kind of give that best foot forward approach to our neighbors and within the development and surrounding community. So getting into the exterior design again, as Director Teague mentioned, we're all stone and metal panel. That was intentional. It was kind of our approach to develop a design that integrated, again, with the surrounding development. and then is a standalone piece of its own with some architectural characteristics that'll be unique to the bank. A view from the north, again with those fin-shaped elements that would be internally illuminated, kind of wrapping around the building to create that four-sided architecture. From Computer Avenue, this view again shows a daytime view and a nighttime view of more of the same architecture. So ultimately, that's the design that we were able to come up with together with Scott, First Bank and Trust. And I think at this point, collectively, we'll turn that over to questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Which commissioner would like to start tonight with questions? Commissioner Miranda.
So I have a question about the enclosed drive-through. What I've never seen one of those before. Could you explain that a little bit and how people don't suffocate with an enclosed drive-through?
Neither have we. So this was an exciting piece to the process for us, and it was very intentional on the part of Scott and First Bank and Trust. I think the best way to describe this is it's closer to, you could think of a parking structure, a parking garage, or a multi-use complex where you might have parking ground level or below ground level. I think maybe in a more ideal circumstance, that whole thing could be contained below grade, but again, with the water table on site and kind of that grading issue that we mentioned earlier, it ended up being surface level, but we did want to shield that from view and make it integral with the building design.
Okay, thank you.
I actually have a follow-on question since we're on the topic. I like to think about the adaptability of space, years down the road. If this building switches ownership, what could that space be used for if it isn't a drive-through? So I don't know if you can speak to, if there was to be an evolution of this building, how that could be adapted for future use.
Another good question, and something the four of us and the rest of our design team have discussed. So as mentioned, it's structurally integral to the rest of the building, and with that, it's fully enclosable. So it's enclosed, but it's open air with screening elements. Those screening elements can just as easily be switched out with storefront assemblies or exterior facades that could enclose the entirety of that main level space.
Thank you. I'll go into my second question then, but I think this would probably be maybe for Scott. But I think right now it says that approximately 20 employees would be expected within the first year. But what about continued growth? How can this site continue to scale if there's 30 employees, 4 years down the road?
Yeah, so I'll stand up. Yeah, I can speak to that. We put 20 in for the first year as we commence the growth, because we have to staff this up because we're bringing new departments in as well. But we could see where we'll have 30 to 40 people officed in this location. Now, when I say that, in fairness, as we add individuals, some of those are remote workers, they're shared offices. You take mortgage loan officers, let's be honest, we don't want them in the building. We want them out making calls. But so they actually share offices, so we're able to actually rotate people through. We have very high expectations from a retail standpoint as well. We've currently been more of a traditional business bank today, but we really see this area as a great opportunity for us to expand our retail presence as well. And we just look around at all the new housing units that are going up as well. So, yes.
Thank you.
I'll share one more note on the topic. So if you look at our floor plan too, you'll notice many spaces indicate future workstation, future office, flex office. So a lot of it is built into the architecture as well. I think there are 30 workspaces to accommodate the 20 and future staff.
Thank you. Other questions? Please, Commissioner Miranda.
So does the bank have a climate action plan?
I'm sorry, could you have a question?
Yeah, does the bank have a climate action plan? Any kind of action towards climate?
Climate action plan? Pardon me?
Sustainability.
I think I'm going to let you speak to that.
The bank doesn't have a specific initiative that I'm aware of, but as a practice, HTG Architects emphasizes sustainability in the materials that we spec and the processes of the design that we approach. So I think this building has several pieces that are kind of above and beyond the traditional standard that our firm employs across the typical building. And a lot of that is inspired by the location, by the city of Edina, and by the city of Edina's standards. So this is certainly a step in the right direction, I believe, for our firm and for First Bank and Trust.
Okay, I mean, part of the reason I ask is that I'm sort of conflicted because the city, I mean, we have no ordinances against, against drive-throughs or anything, but we do have a climate action plan that the city has adopted, and it does call for reducing vehicle miles traveled, which is car travel. And I notice you have a two-car or two-lane drive-through here. So I was just wondering if there was any thought as to reducing that.
Scott, would you like to discuss the drive up and the necessity of it?
Yeah, the reducing it or the necessity of it, which, I mean, I think, let me address just the necessity of a drive up. I mean, we had discussions regarding whether we should have a drive-through or not, and the pandemic answered that for us. Our Roseville office, we do not have a drive-through. We couldn't open it. We'd have one person in the office and by appointment only allow customers in. So we really sent our customers to our Edina location who needed to use a drive-through. So from that perspective, a drive-through is a necessity. Now, secondly, what we looked at on this property was we initially looked at possibly just one lane, but then as I looked at it, I said, look, now we're going to have a stacking problem. You know, in the future, as we grow and we have hopefully much more retail traffic, we think that could become a stacking problem coming back out in through the drive. So what we tried to do was put 2 lanes inside the drive-through, if you will, the covered drive-through, and then just 1 lane exiting. Again, we're really trying to shield or screen kind of that sight line, if you will, of cars sitting in line waiting as they come down 77th or Computer. So from that perspective, that's what we're trying to accomplish. Sure if that answered your question or not, but. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I'm not really concerned about the screening. I'm concerned more about, I mean, we're in a drought right now, and the city, on the other hand, is also spending tens of millions of dollars on water management within the city because of climate change. So it's already affecting the city in a very big way. And we have a climate action plan, but we haven't changed our ordinances yet. So I'm just wondering what your bank is doing and whether you see this in other cities that you have offices in that you address climate change somehow. You know, in all honesty, I don't have information regarding that. Now, the 2 largest other cities that we are in are Sioux Falls and Brookings, South Dakota. And all the rest of our communities, you take the other 19 communities, are all communities of probably 10,000 and less. So that has not surfaced as an issue for those communities as of this point. So I would say organizationally, I'm sure that's something that will be in our risk management group at some point from a reputation standpoint and from, as you said, a climate standpoint. It is not something that has been addressed organizationally to this point.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I can share maybe one more side comment on the architectural side. That the drive up is, as Scott mentioned, a necessity. It's also an amenity. It's not the primary focus of this site. Walkability is important, and I think the site communicates that and provides it to the best extent possible. Bikeability is huge. I say that as somebody who has biked to work regularly. That's something I enjoy the ability to do. I've since moved away and miss that very much, as Sean knows. But we do include the bike racks on the site. We do include the shower facilities within the building. We see this as, you know, an opportunity for multiple modes of transportation to bring you here, one of those being by car.
Sure, you've done a number of good things. I appreciate the showers and the bike facilities. A lot of times cyclists, are prevented from using drive-throughs, and so that's something that I hope you address. And then you are right next to the 9 Mile Creek Trail, and so you would think some customers and some employees would take advantage of it. So that's why I was thinking reducing it by 1 would be a good idea, but thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you. We will go ahead and open up our public hearing now. So we will hear from residents who would like to provide testimony. First, we will hear from those in person, and then we will hear from those who call in. So to participate remotely, please call in now at 786-496-5601 and enter conference pin 855-0148#. And again, press *1 on your keypad when you'd like to enter the queue. Everyone will be allowed up to 3 minutes to speak. Please give your full name and address, and staff member Liz Olson will let anyone who calls in know if they've gone over 3 minutes. So first, I will hear from any of those who are in person this evening to provide public testimony for this public hearing. Seeing none, I will look to see if we have any callers tonight.
Commissioners, we do not currently have any callers in the queue, but I do recommend that we wait 1 minute before proceeding, just because there is a slight delay in the broadcast. So I will come back to you in 1 minute or when we have a caller, whichever is soonest.
Thank you.
All right, it has been 1 minute and we still do not have any callers, so I believe it is safe to proceed with the meeting.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing, please?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the public hearing has been closed. So now I will open it up to fellow commissioners for any final questions. Otherwise, comments would be allowable. Go ahead.
Yes, to the whole project team, that enclosed drive-through, I find that just a remarkable part of this building. And the building itself is really, I think, is going to be a very strong presence along. There's a lot of activity out there on 77th Street as you drive through there going on. I think it's a very handsome building, and I like the way you incorporate the landscaping and all the things to fit into the sort of the plans as they've been developing. I mean, it's great seeing that whole project kind of coming together from what was just this big open field to us. Now it's really taking shape, and I think this is a very welcome addition to what's been happening there. Thank you.
Commissioner Padilla.
I'd like to congratulate the bank on your growth. And I've been in the building that you're in now, and it's an enormous increase in space and all that you're going to be doing. So again, congratulations on that. I think the building looks very striking. And will be a good addition to that area. And I've worked with enough developers to know about the demand for drive-through. So I think that this is an interesting way to meet that demand.
I think just some thoughts from myself. I think that this is an interesting one because the matter on the table is really, I think, for us to think about the sign ordinance, right? Like the entirety of the project already went through for the PUD. And so while I'm not necessarily excited about having a single-use bank in this site, I think that particularly in this area with the amount of density that's just happening, it could be an interesting place to have, more vertical mixed use, have other potential office space within the building. I also know that that's not the matter at hand tonight, and really we're here to reflect on the sign ordinance. And so because of that, I am supportive of this. Thank you.
So I make a motion to recommend approval of the site plan and ordinance amendment regarding signage, subject to the findings and conditions outlined in the staff memo.
I'll second that.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
All right. The recommendation for the City Council to approve this has been approved. So best of luck in your next stage. Thank you. The next item on our agenda tonight is a subdivision for 6416 Macaulay Circle, and Director Teague will be presenting tonight.
Okay, thank you, Chair, members of the Planning Commission. This property is located on the far west edge of town, kind of at the intersection of Highway 169 and where it meets up with the crosstown, located on Arrowhead Lake. As you can see, it's a lakeshore property, unique shape. The lots, though platted into the middle of the lake, the actual property line is the ordinary high water mark around the lake, so they're not quite as large as shown here. This property is unique in that it gains access off of Macaulay Circle, as the existing home on the lot gains access off Macaulay Circle. But there's also a 28.5-foot access off of Macaulay Terrace. So actually, as the property exists today, they could have access from both streets. A little bit closer look, you can see it's a wooded lot. What you can't tell here is there are steep slopes that go down toward the lake, so the house sits up high and the lake much lower. Here's a look at the site from Macaulay Terrace, where you can see it kind of appears as though it's a vacant lot. And this is a look at the site off of Macaulay Circle. So this is the access that they utilize today. The site has a unique zoning. So again, here is the property. The area that's hashed out here, those are duplexes. So this signifies R2 zoning, and all of the white properties indicates R1 single-family homes. These two lots on Macaulay Terrace that show R1 zoning, these were recently rezoned from R2 to R1. Most recently, this lot here in 2018, so there are now single-family homes there rather than its original zoning for duplexes. So what the applicant is proposing here is to tear down the existing home, again, that's located roughly in this location, and build two new single-family homes. So the buildable area is this hashed area here. This would be lot 1, the building pad, and lot 2, this would be the building pad here. This dark area This is that steep slope area, so there's no disturbance into the steep slope as it moves down toward the lake. So access to Lot 2 would come off of Macaulay Terrace and Lot 1 off of Macaulay Circle. There are a number of trees on the site. The X's indicate trees that would be removed. There are 23 of them. As you know, the city recently adopted a new tree ordinance. That doesn't go into effect until January 1st of next year. However, we're suggesting as a condition of approval that this project need to conform to that ordinance, which is essentially the trees that are removed would have to be replaced. Currently, the ordinance, any tree that's within the building pad that's removed, you don't have to replace. The applicant is agreeable to meeting that new ordinance. Minimum lot size is determined by the median lot area width and depth of all properties within 500 feet. So that does not include the properties that have that R2 zoning designation, the duplexes. So this indicates the area where the median was calculated using just the R1 lots. So the minimum lot size here is just under 19,000 square feet, lot width of 102 feet, and depth of 181 feet. Lot 1 will require variances to the area width and depth. Lot 2 to the depth. As you can see, in terms of area, the home that needs the variance, it's relatively close, and Lot 2 exceeds the setback or the area requirement. So this request requires a subdivision to divide the property, the lot area width and depth variances for Lot 1, and lot depth and street frontage variance for Lot 2. So I mentioned on Macaulay Terrace, they have a 28.5-foot access to the street. Code requires 30 feet. It is an existing condition. So a couple of primary issues to consider. First, is the proposed subdivision reasonable for the site? Staff believes that the proposal is reasonable, that lots within this area have a wide variety of shapes and sizes, and I'll show a map of that in a minute. The lots are generally similar in size and shapes to other lots in the area, including the width at the street. The existing lot is the largest in the area. So these next two slides were really what shaped the staff recommendation. So this first slide indicates lot sizes on Macaulay Terrace. So these first two lots, again, this is a duplex lot. So there's a duplex that extends over the lot line, so 2 units. But the first lot is 12,000 square feet, the second 13. The new R1 lots, 16,000 square feet. Again, another 16,000 square foot lot. This lot here, as you can see, has a neck lot. There's a 21-foot width at the street. This property at 6445 has a 25-foot opening. And this is that 28.5-foot existing condition that I mentioned before. Lots closer to the east, a little bit larger, 24,000, 21,000. The lot to the south is 30,000 square feet. And the proposed lot 2 here is 19,000 square foot. So it's kind of in the middle of the lots in terms of size on Macaulay Terrace. The second slide indicates lot sizes on Macaulay Circle. So lot 1 that's going to come off of Macaulay Circle would be 16,000 square feet and would be larger than the R1 properties to the east. So again, staff believes that the proposed lot sizes are generally consistent with lots in the area. And again, the irregular shape is consistent within that area too. Again, this graphic indicates the variety of lot sizes in the area. Also, the lot up on Macaulay Terrace, it kind of gives the appearance that there's a vacant lot within that site. We did receive a lot of comments on Better Together, many in favor. Those that were against the project live in closer proximity to the site. Concerns raised included traffic concerns. The lots are too small. Concerns about parking on Macaulay Terrace. The proposal is too dense. There's no affordable housing. Concern about impacts to the environment, impacts on the lake, and tree removal. One thing I want to mention, I didn't before. So with the building pads, you can see they're proposing rain gardens to control runoff from the site in the rear yards. They would be 2 separate rain gardens. The idea is to control runoff so it doesn't run into the lake and disturb that steep slope. So they're trying to minimize impacts as much as they can. Again, though, this would require approval of the watershed district as well. So with that, staff has provided alternatives. This is one that could go either way. If the Planning Commission believes that it doesn't meet the standards, there is a listing of findings for denial for the project, as well as approval. The staff recommendation is for approval, subject to those findings, the items that I went through, and the conditions that are also outlined. With that, I can stand for questions.
Thank you so much, Director Teague. Questions do we have? Commissioner Strauss.
Okay, just going back, I think that was very good. So staff's appraisal, I mean, sort of was that, so there's lots 1 and 2, and then say the more northern one, is that lot 1?
That is lot 1,
So
yes.
the lot size for that was consistent with the lots sort of adjacent to that property, and then when you looked at 2, you looked at a different sort of collection. I mean, which I think is a fair way of approaching it versus how it compares, putting it all together in one big analysis and coming up with a number. So they compared the lots adjacent to where they were. Okay, I mean,
Correct. Yeah, as this graphic shows, the 16,000 square foot is below the median, where the median is over 18,000 square feet, but the lots on Macaulay Circle are all smaller. So yeah, that had a big influence on the staff recommendation.
And there's certainly nothing typical about this area.
It's a mixture of duplexes, single-family homes, and a lot of irregular lot shapes and sizes.
We've had properties in duplexes where there's that one irregular piece, but these are all irregular. So, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Miranda.
Yeah, was there any history of this being 2 lots, or it's always been 1 lot?
There wasn't. I've had some conversations with the Macaulay family. You see it predominant in the area. And from what they tell me, that was their intention to divide this property, but they never made any formal application to subdivide it. The plats, this is the plat line here. So everything to the north was a plat, and everything to the south here, there were 2 separate plats.
Thanks.
Commissioner Alkire.
Director Teague, there's something that's come up before is I think it was a state-defined setback from a body of water for buildings for structures. Is that considered in the way the lots are put together now?
Yes. So the state requirement for a natural, I'm trying to think of the term for this type of a natural environment lake needs at least a 75-foot setback. So being that the building pads are set so far back from the ordinary high water mark, I don't know that exact measurement. I can measure it, but it exceeds the 75-foot setback requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Padilla.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is a question for you or the watershed district, but do we know the status, the condition of the lake? I mean, in terms of the water condition and whether or not, how it's been changing?
Yeah, but I don't know specifically. We did have some feedback in Better Together about concerns about the condition of the lake and cleaning it up. So I don't know the specifics to it.
But the lake shore hasn't changed dramatically over the years with the drought, or it's...
Oh, yeah, that I'm not sure. I didn't hear anything about that.
Okay, thanks.
All right, I'm not hearing any other questions. Did the property owner have a presentation to make or any words to share?
I appreciate you all coming here tonight. So my name is Dipendra Maset. I'm the owner of 6416 McCallie Circle. So I bought this property originally in intention to just tear down and then build one beautiful house. But as I went along the process, talking with the different builders and having their ideas, I came to realize the highest and the best value of the land would be by subdividing. Because it, like Katie explained, it touches like 2 different estates and is the largest land on the within 500 feet radius. So when we went through the process, it has some variance. So once it has the variance, you have to get the majority of neighbor approval. So what me and my friend Brianna thought, hey, why not just to go door to door to all neighbor that falls under 500 feet radius and see if they are on board with us. So luckily, one day we drove there and then we found there was a block party, and that was perfect for us because it would be easy for us to talk everyone at the same time. At the time, we got positive feedback. And then we left. So after a week, we thought to go back again to explain each and every neighbor in case they were distracted. So we got really positive feedback. Most of the neighbors were supportive, some were not. So while in the process, Tom McCallie, the grandfather who built that house, and the Pat McCallie, his brother, who reached out to me once he knew I'm the real new property owner. So I had an opportunity to explain what I'm going to do with the property, and they were on the board. They were like, wow, this is amazing. We were thinking, but we never approached and applied for the application. So they told me about the history of the house and all the McCallie neighborhood, and it grew my more appreciation of the property and my project. So what I strongly believe is having this property divided into 2 and have built a really good house with a reputable builder will increase the value of all neighborhood and also will be helpful for the city.
Thank you so much. Any commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Padilla.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. You're thinking of the 2 homes would be about how large?
So the buildable plot is like 3,500 square feet. We have not talked with any architects yet, but what I'm thinking, both lots would be large enough to build like 400,000 square feet house.
4,000 square feet, is that what you're saying? Okay. And what if your proposal isn't approved? Would you just build the one home on it, or would you build one larger home? What's your plan B?
So if it doesn't approve, I don't know, there is a lot of things to be considered to build one house, how big we can go, looking all the surrounding neighborhood and the market. So I don't think we will go with a really large house. We will go with something smaller that makes sense to us and the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. We might have more questions after the public hearing, but appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
All right, so now we will open the public hearing. Oh, sorry.
Good evening. My name is Brianna Olson. I am Dependra's longtime friend, and I've also been his realtor. I'm a realtor with Coldwell Banker, and I helped him to purchase this property back in June. I just wanted to address some of the comments that were online, just questioning his intentions and things like that. Like I said, I've known him for many years, and as you can see, he has amazing ambition and drive, but aside from that, he has good intention behind everything that he does, and he has a pure heart. It's been so inspiring to see his process and the time and the energy that he has put into building the relationships in the community, going again and again to the neighbors to talk with them, to build these relationships, doing all the research that he's done, and to learn the history. He has had many phone calls with Tom McCauley, learning about the history of the neighborhood and their family as well. So this is not something that he takes lightly. It is his main intent to go about this project responsibly and with care. So one of the things that neighbors had brought up was the issue of safety and children playing in the street. I know that we plan to work with the city to address that and make sure that traffic doesn't become an issue. And regardless, if he is to just have one lot and not to subdivide, he still plans to move the driveway to the other side, to the other cul-de-sac anyways. As far as like the landscape and the natural habitat of the area, we acknowledge that, and we acknowledge that there's specific wildlife there, and we'll work with the 9 Mile Mill Creek District in preserving the nature and the wildlife there and not taking out all the grass like up to the lake edge. Like we'll preserve the long grass and so that the wildlife quality still remains, as well as working with the 9 Mile District with the lake water quality. We'll also follow the city requirements for the tree replacement. In conclusion, I think that this lot is perfectly set up for subdivision, given that it touches the 2 streets, and I believe that it will improve the neighborhood and the city as a whole. So I urge the city planners to approve this plan. Thank you again for your time and consideration. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much. All right, I think now, anything else from the applicant tonight? Okay. So we will go ahead and open up our public hearing. So first we'll hear from residents in person, and then we'll hear from those who are calling in remotely. So to participate remotely, please call in now at 786-496-5601 and enter conference pin 8550148#. Again, just a reminder, everyone is allowed up to 3 minutes to speak. Please start with your full name and address. Staff member Liz Olson will let anyone who calls in know if they have gone over the 3 minutes. For those of you in person, there's the light indicator on the podium. When you have 30 seconds remaining, the yellow light will turn on, and when you're out of time, the red light will turn on. So first, I will start with anyone who would like to provide public testimony in person tonight. Yeah, you can start on that side.
Thank you. Macaulay Terrace, and I've lived in the irregular shaped lot for 22 years. I am not in favor of this change, hearing that one lot is being subdivided into 2, and both of those lots each require variances. Tells me that it is being forced in, and it's a hardship that's self-inflicted. I won't cover, again, all the environmental issues, but I will say I am afraid of setting a precedent of having other lake lots on Arrowhead Lake subdivided in the future based on whatever mathematical formula goes on. And if I had another 3 minutes, I could go into the lake quality as I've witnessed it and canoed on it for decades with my daughters. And I do know the Macaulays. I know Betty Macaulay before she passed away, and I know that not all maybe are in favor of that sort of development. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else in person who'd like to provide public testimony?
Hi, good evening. Kevin Crudden, 6720 Indian Hills Road. Lived in the neighborhood 30x years. The water quality is horrible in Arrowhead Lake. Go out there and take a look at it. It's declined massively the last 2 or 3 years. As my neighbor probably knows, it's very bad. Part of it is the climate. Part of it is the drought. Part of it is the very homes that are on that stretch of land that we're talking about. They're tiny houses that I look at when I look out. So the aesthetic is I'm looking over in that direction because I'm east of all of that. And there are lawns going right down to the water, fertilizer going into the water. That's sort of beside the point. I tend to agree with my neighbor about the lot sizes and the variances. It's a lot to ask for. In fact, 3 houses away from me, somebody bought a house, built a house, and actually bought the lot, went the other direction to create more space in the neighborhood. We moved in that neighborhood because of the trees and because we like the open spaces. The last thing we want to see are houses getting chopped up. And if we saw houses getting chopped up from more lakeshore, now this piece of land we're talking about, I'm not sure I saw what tiny piece of lakeshore it's going to get, because it sounds like the lot's going to get cut straight right to the lake, which means the lakeshore part is really tiny. If you saw the bottleneck at the end, is probably one of the smallest, tiniest pieces on the lake, is my guess. So I liked his. We're shoehorning something that I don't think would be preferable for the neighborhood, at least from our standpoint. Just my 3 minutes are up too.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Anyone else here tonight? Going once. All right. I will look to the phone lines to see if anyone has dialed in tonight.
Commissioners, we do currently have 2 callers on the line, but they have not yet expressed their desire to speak. So callers, if you're on the line and you'd like to speak, this is just a reminder to please press *1. And so I do recommend that we wait a minute here to allow them the opportunity to do so.
Thank you.
All right, and it looks like they have both expressed their desire to speak. So with that, operator, will you please unmute the line of our first caller?
Hi, my name is Brett Parmenter at 6443 Macaulay Terrace. So we're the lot directly to the south of the proposed subdivision. And just wanted to point out that it seemed like a lot of the staff's recommendations surrounded the square footage of the lot. Our lot, shows up as 30,000 square feet. But I would warn you is that, it's close to a 2.5 to 3 story drop off to the lake, so that the effective building area is significantly less than kind of what shows up just looking at the topographical map. It's questionable, subdividing it, what size, any effective size that they would have around that would be. So just a concern that, the numbers don't truly show how small the true effective building area is.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you so much.
Operator, will you please unmute the line of our next caller?
Yeah, Yes, hi, good evening. My name is Michael Ramey, 6401 Macaulay Circle. My family and I have lived here on Arrowhead Lake here for over the 10 plus past years. And I'm strongly against this lot subdivision, as I've mentioned to the applicant before when he was being very aggressive trying to obtain signatures, not necessarily in the manner of what she presented this evening. First of all, I'm a bit disappointed that the city has not contacted and worked with the water resource team and management team there we work closely with. I'm the vice president of the Lake Association here on Arrowhead Lake, and we work closely with the water resource management team and the watershed district to try and maintain the best quality for this lake as possible. Secondly, as referenced in the presentation to the city, the new R1 lots that were shown and presented at lot size that were smaller in lots are not abutting the lakeshore property. If you noticed, all those are off the lakeshore property. The only one that was rezoned back to R1 was an individual, I believe, who just spoke, was 30,000 plus square feet. Those off the lake they're not on the lake. The access point the applicant is trying to get for these two lots in the subdivision are going to be the two narrowest access points on the lake as it currently stands today. Having two homes constructed, and if you haven't been out there, go take a look at the slope. The two homes constructed versus one with the silt fence and everything else, all it's going to do is just pour more sediment into the lake. Lastly, I'd like to talk about lot values, home values. According to Hennepin County records, the applicant purchased this lot for $630,000. You subdivide that, that's $315,000 per lot. You take a look at the average listing price of homes on Arrowhead Lake and tell me how this can even closely fit in with the value of the homes that are being built on Arrowhead Lake here today. Given all that, I hope that the commissioners tonight listen to the neighborhood, try and keep in the spirit of Indian Hills, Arrowhead Lake, and deny the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have there been any additional callers?
We do not have any other callers.
All right. Do you recommend we give it any more time, or are we safe to close the public hearing, in your opinion?
I think that it is safe to close the public hearing.
Thank you. All right. Can I have a motion, please?
Move to close the public hearing.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. The public hearing has been closed. So with that, I will open it up to my fellow commissioners for comments or additional questions if you do have them. Please, Commissioner Alkire.
I have another question for Director Teague. Carrie, can you just say a few words about what the watershed district or natural resource agencies in the area will have to say about the project as it goes forward, kind of independent of the subdivision? As the building process goes forward, what gates will the builder have to go through to make sure it doesn't harm the lake?
Yeah, I would make a recommendation about adding a condition in that regard. On a lot of these natural environment lakes within the city, we place conservation easements over them. So like on that one slide that showed the steep slope, I would say from the top of that steep slope all the way to the lake shore, you could condition that a conservation easement be placed over that, and you could prohibit within that area, could prohibit trees from being removed unless they're diseased or need to be removed. No structures within that area. That type of easement is relatively common, and I probably should have recommended that initially in the staff report, but should you choose to approve the project, I would recommend adding that condition to help preserve the lakeshore.
Just to follow up on that, how would one determine the area of that conservation easement as X number of feet from the lake shore, or?
Yeah, typically they're, say, 100 feet up from the lake shore. I think with this one, because of the steep slope designation, we could take it from basically that drawing. I know it's not a straight line, or generally way up high on the site. Probably for legal description purposes, maybe a straight line above that would be the most appropriate. But it would be, typically those are drafted up by the city attorney, and it would be conditioned that that easement would need to be in place prior to issuance of a building permit on the site.
Okay, so for this evening's business, we would not need to be specific about X number of feet from the shore. We would just specify a conservation easement where the grade changes to go down to the lake, and then we could sort out the details later.
Yeah, the top of the steep slope.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Miranda.
So subdividing lots is a touchy subject, and odd-shaped lots in particular are kind of difficult because, often you have narrow entryways and that have to be shared and whatnot. So this lot is really interesting because it has two potential entrances on two separate cul-de-sacs. So that kind of solves that problem. I've been on this commission long enough that I remember when the two lots across the street were rezoned for single-family homes. So there's a history in the area of rezoning that's not really, well, that actually kind of was spot rezoning, but this really wouldn't be because there's higher density housing in the areas, and we're not even zoning this to duplex. We're not rezoning this to duplex, right? No. So it's just a slightly higher density because the lot size is a little small. So, and based on what, Director Teague told us about the lot sizes in the area and the lot sizes on each cul-de-sac, to me it seems like this seems like a perfectly reasonable accommodation to make. So, thank you.
Commissioner Bennett.
Subdivisions. Yeah, so this one, I mean, they're touchy subjects, as you mentioned. And they're touchy even when there's no variances involved, for the reasons you mentioned and other reasons. I've been on here for a lot of subdivisions, and I've always stuck to a certain principle of my own, which is kind of maintaining the character of the neighborhood. And kind of my rule of thumb, and it doesn't apply across the board, is, when we've had a history of, you have one block and they're all the same width, and then there's one that's out of place and we're subdividing it to match them. I support that because that pretty much matches the character of the neighborhood. But in areas where there are unique lots, and this neighborhood in general is known for larger lots, and that character of unique larger lots, I've supported not subdividing, and that's just how I voted historically. There was, I think, a 10-acre lot that went for subdivision nearby several years ago. And it's like, yeah, you could subdivide that into 8 lots easily and build a bunch of houses, make a lot of money. But it changes the character of the neighborhood. And while this makes sense, the fact that there's several variances involved and there is a neighboring lot that's almost equal in size, it's not just alone. It's kind of the unique character of the neighborhood to me, and I think the compromise by approving it is too great for me to support, so I'm not in support of this.
Interesting conversation. I guess generally where feasible, I'm always going to be supportive of creating opportunities for additional families to come live in Edina. That's good for our city. And I'm sympathetic to the concerns about the variances required for both lots, but I do find it persuasive that there are near adjacent lots of similar or smaller size. As Commissioner Bennett said, there are also adjacent lots that are much larger. And so it's hard to, in an area like this where there's so much diversity in lot size, it's hard to say what the rules should be. So based on that diversity, I'm comfortable with increasing the diversity by adding 2 smaller lots. I am concerned, I mean, I don't see a great deal or material incremental environmental damage to the lake by having 2 buildings being built compared to 1 larger building being built, or 2 homes there with lawns compared to 1 home there with a larger lawn, provided that it's managed properly. So I would want in our motion this evening, I would recommend to require the conservation steps that Director Teague mentioned earlier. So generally supportive with the caveat that we need to do what we can to protect the natural resource there. Thanks.
Commissioner Padilla.
Yeah, I'm kind of 2 minds as far as this goes. I'm listening very intently to the presentation and to what my fellow commissioners are saying, because I see both sides. I did walk the neighborhood and looked at the where the Macaulay Terrace entrance would be, as well as where the current entrance to the existing home is. And one of the things I noticed is that the current structure that's there is probably no longer in character with the neighborhood, because the neighborhood has changed and there's been a lot of building. So there's many homes in the area that have been, I'm not sure if they've been tear downs, but they've been renovated, they've been rebuilt, they've been added on to, so that there are a lot of homes, I would say, that are larger than 4,000 square feet in that neighborhood. So I think the character is changing. And I think I also don't think, as long as we're talking about 2 different cul-de-sacs, and I understand there's a concern about traffic and parking and things like that, but I think it still would be six homes on 1 cul-de-sac or something instead of 5. To me, that's not a reason not to do it. So as Commissioner Alkire said, with the added condition that Director Teague mentioned, I would be in favor.
Commissioner Strauss.
Yes, I'll get right to it. I guess I would be in favor of this project. I think the staff made some compelling arguments for approval of this. It was been repeated. The property owner's willingness to abide or to conform with the tree ordinance was very important, and the additional condition of conservation protections, I think, is enough to persuade me that this is a good project. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Teague, I have one more question. Is it possible to also add a contingency that we would grant the subdivision based on not granting any future variances for setback or coverage of these lots once the actual plans for the houses come into fruition?
Yeah, I've been advised over the years by our city attorney to not bind future planning commission, city council on variances. So we can't say no. I think it's going to now be reflected in the minutes in this tape that that's not what the planning commission wants to see there. but anybody would have a right in the future to come in and request a setback variance or whatever it may be.
Thank you. I think that this one is difficult, right? Because on the one hand, you have incremental increasing of density, which anytime we can add even just one more home, I think is valuable, especially for how much of our area is zoned single family residential. There's not much wiggle room on adding more of that. On the other hand, I think that the environmental concerns and the consideration for the environmental impact is also a serious one. But I think that, Commissioner Alkire, the way that you kind of stacked up the two options of, is there more lawn that is potentially being fertilized and manicured and all of that, and what is the actual comparison to those two different options, and I just don't feel like there's enough clarity or enough information on that. Within the staff report, we do, I lost the page now to get the exact one, but one of the conditions is working with the 9 Mile Creek watershed district to do a full review too. I believe that was one of the conditions. And I think that with the addition of the conservation easement, I do feel more comfortable with that component. But I do think that with all of these decisions that we're making as a council, or excuse me, as a commission, we really do need to be conscious of what are the environmental impacts. And I think that this is one where we're already seeing that deterioration within this area. And so it makes it front of mind for me as a commissioner. Commissioner Miranda.
Yeah, just a couple more comments about environmentalism and climate change. It may seem contradictory, but I'm generally in favor of small increases in density because, if we build another house here, it's just one house, but if we build another residence here, that's somebody who doesn't have to drive to, some exurb somewhere, because that's the only place that we're allowing people to build houses. So, we certainly don't want, 6-story buildings in this neighborhood. But this seems like a pretty small incremental difference. The other thing is that water quality in lakes like this is often due to the homeowners themselves. So, having, a far-sighted way of addressing the landscaping here so that it is less grass and more native plants would be to go a long way towards solving that problem. So it's not the lot size that really affects that all that much. So generally, I think, again, part of the reason I'm in favor of this, well, there's these two perfect outs, the two perfect driveways on opposite streets, and the fact that the north lot is bigger than the lots adjacent to it, and the south lot is well within the range of the lots adjacent to it. So it doesn't really seem out of character to the neighborhood to me at all. So it does fit in with the climate change thing because people are not having to drive to some exurb. So thank you.
I'll give it a try. I'd make a motion to recommend approval of the subdivision and variances subject to the findings and conditions outlined in the staff memo. So that includes the things that we've discussed tonight, the watershed district review and the compliance with the new tree ordinance, and also establishment of a conservation easement on the slope going down to the lake shore. You want to add to that or edit
yes.
it? Please,
yes, please.
do.
I've been given that a little more thought, and
Okay.
I thought, let me just offer how it could read and the timing of when it's put in place. I've rethought that as well. A conservation easement be established from the top of the steep slope to the lake shore, preventing tree removal, disturbance of the slopes, no manicured lawn or buildings within the easement to be in place prior to the city council approving the final plat. That way it's in place and we can see what that language reads prior to city council final approval.
So could we just take that as a friendly amendment, or do I have to say that again? Okay. Then the movement is amended by Director Teague.
Second.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
All right. So we are, I forget the exact phrasing now. The recommendation to the city council to approve this has been approved, so it will move on to the city council. Thank you very much. Okay, next up on our agenda tonight is our chair and member comments. So do we have any comments from any commissioners tonight?
Just that I'm generally terrified that we haven't had rain in like 3 months. We had a little bit the other day, but this is really kind of worrisome. So generally, the way weather works or climate works is if you don't get rain for a long time, you're going to get a lot of rain. So this winter or spring could be very rainy for us. So, and I mean, what the city is doing, well, they're reconstructing our street, which isn't making things any better for us, but there's still, you know, that project in Weber Woods and Weber Park is a huge amount of infrastructure. I mean, the stuff they're doing there is huge. So if we have some huge rain event before that's done, I'm not sure what's going to happen to the neighborhood. But as you can probably tell, I'm very worried about climate change, and I just see the effect every day, and it just really concerns me. Thank you.
All right. No other comments tonight? All right. I will pass it off to Director Teague.
Just one quick update from the City Council. They did review the 7200, 7250 project there on France Avenue, and they did approve that project. So that one will be moving forward. That's it.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to adjourn tonight.
Move to adjourn.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.